Welcome back to the New News with your host Olivia Jane, where we discuss what the hell is going on around the world and how it affects the average person like you and me. And on today's New News, Europe imposed an American-style visa for UK tourists. The great rock and roll swindle as Ticketmaster beats the ticket touts by becoming the ticket touts. More misery for the hospitality sector. What's Victoria's new secret? Children and teens murder an old man. At least 12 people have died as gangs continue to load desperate people onto tiny boats, casting them into the English Channel to try and find sanctuary in the UK. What is unclear is how one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world cannot seem to be able to police what is becoming a tragic graveyard for desperate people. Should the government on both sides of the channel be treating every death as murder and not trafficking? Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced last week that the Labour government will go ahead with the bill to ban anyone born after 2009 from ever being able to buy cigarettes. They also proposed legislation banning smoking in areas outside pubs, restaurants, and hospitals. The fact that you can smoke outside a hospital is unbelievable. The hospitality industry, however, is understandably critical of the proposals. Since the COVID lockdowns in 2020 and 2021, many long-established cafes, restaurants, pubs, and music venues have already closed for good. Limiting what people can do when they do go out for a drink or a meal could make socializing outside of the home unattractive for many, meaning even more of our already failing hospitality sector could shut up for good. However, Labour believe a sensible approach will help people reduce their smoking and cut down the 80,000 people who die every year from smoking-related diseases. Yet, is banning smoking outside the best solution? Smokers will only be able to smoke at home, where their children live. Is this a sensible approach? Or should smoking just be banned entirely? Or is the tax money raised by the sale of cigarettes much more important? Police have arrested 5 children aged between 12 and 14 on the charge of murdering an 80-year-old man who was simply out walking his dog. Detective Inspector Emma Matz, senior investigating officer, said, "Sadly, following the death of the victim last night, this has now become a murder investigation. Officers are continuing to work at speed to establish the details of the attack, and we have made a number of arrests as we continue to understand what has happened." The victim, Bim Colley, died in hospital due to his injuries. It's not a huge leap to think this may well be another racially motivated attack and another shocking case of children committing murder. This behaviour comes soon after the conviction of middle-class wife of a Conservative councillor, Lucy Connolly, a childminder from Northampton, who has been found guilty of publishing a post on the social media platform X intending to stir up racial hatred. She called for hotels housing asylum seekers to be set alight. Her post called for mass deportation now, set fire to all the fucking hotels full of the bastards for all I care. She stated, "If that makes me racist, so be it." The judge seemed to think that it did, so now she is awaiting sentencing. Once again, this highlights the question, should social media be at least moderated by media companies like X, who found nothing wrong with the suggestion of burning hotels that are housing people trying to escape hate and violence? Autumn in the UK, the Met Office have released a list of names that will be used for storms in the coming 12 months. It's only 10 years since storms have been named in the UK, but it's set to continue as the Met Office says it helps to communicate the severity of the weather. Basically, if you hear a storm has been named, it's worth checking the weather forecast in case your travel is affected, or even whether your home is at risk. Names chosen for storms include Ashley, Bert, Floris, Izzy, Lewis, Poppy, and Tilly. Emily Carlisle, a Met Office scientist, says there is some evidence that storms with strong winds, windstorms, will become slightly more frequent in the future in Northwest Europe, and also become more clustered so that we experience several storms one after the other. Tie down your trampolines. A regular theme in the media is the news that a new drug is announced, a game changer in treatment for cancer or some other terrible disease. Much fanfare and promotion takes place explaining how it will completely cure patients or increase life expectancy. Fabulous. And then that same drug is in the news again because it turns out it's so expensive that unless you are very rich, you are not going to get it. NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, simply cannot afford to license the wonder drug for use in the NHS. It will only be available to patients who are able to pay for it privately. So is it fair that only rich people will be able to benefit from this treatment? Or is it fair that the pharmaceutical companies market it to the average person and give hope to so many in order to leverage the NHS into buying their expensive drugs? Should there just be a cost limit imposed on drug companies when they are researching and developing treatments? What is clear is that it is cruel for patients and their families to hear that a drug will soon be available that could greatly improve their quality of life, only for that hope to be snatched away once the full costs are realised. At least consider not announcing a new drug until it's clear whether or not it will be available to the majority of patients. The great rock and roll swindle hits a new high as hundreds of thousands of us spent a large part of last weekend online queuing to buy Oasis tickets, only to be told tickets were either gone, too expensive to buy, or there was a technical fault, so get to the back of the queue. Fortunately, some good has come out of the Oasis ticket sales, as Ticketmaster have driven out ticket touts by becoming ticket touts. A big shout out to the master songwriter Paul Heaton, one of the most honourable people in the music industry. Formerly of the House Martins and the Beautiful South, who took a stand against dynamic pricing. Paul set a single price for all of his tickets for his upcoming tour. Paul wants everyone to be able to afford a ticket and to afford a beer too. So, no fluctuating prices or VIP enclosures. Paul Heaton loves us all equally. A banking hack posted on TikTok has made people millionaires overnight. What could possibly go wrong? 4chan users worked out that if you bank with Chase Bank and you send a check to yourself and then run to the bank and go to the cash machine, the bank will not have processed that the money is not in your account. So it will act as if the money is in there and give you the money. Obviously, Chase Bank realised what was going on, and now the bank accounts involved have been charged the money that they took out. Like, duh. TikTokers are now crying all over the internet as they owe the bank a lot of money and are now in big legal trouble. I say once again, duh. Gigi Hadid and Tyler teamed up to announce that the Victoria's Secret fashion show is back. It ended in 2018 after a 17-year run after widespread complaints due to the company's lack of inclusivity. All their models were mainly copy and paste. Stunning, tall, tanned goddesses. Some were annoyed at this as it does not represent the average consumer's bodies. Now, fans are curious to see how their brand's new revamp will tackle these issues. Will it go the Fenty x Savage Rihanna route, where they had a wide array of models and influencers wearing their designs? Or will they stick to what most fashion companies do? Actual models. Some are arguing that modelling is a job, and the role of a model is to showcase the clothes, and the garments should be the main focus rather than inclusivity. All the big brands like Chanel, Dior, Hermes use models that don't represent the average person at all. The models replicate moving mannequins, so the focus is on the clothing. We will see when Victoria outs their secrets. Soon, UK citizens will have to pay to enter the EU. This is one of many new travel rules coming into place for British travellers. Rather than a simple passport stamp, we're going to have our fingers and our face scanned upon arrival. As well as that, we're going to have to fill in a travel form before we arrive to any EU country. This includes your medical information, contact details, where you're staying, and more. But the most drastic change is that you will need a visa. Before you even book your flights, you will have to fill out a form that supposedly takes 10 minutes and costs you around £6. It will be valid for 3 years or till whenever your passport expires. It is valid for every EU state, as well as Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. It won't include Cyprus or Ireland. More details will be confirmed by the European Union. However, we could be paying for a visa by May next year and having your finger scanned as early as November this year. Finally, an alarming update on the astronauts stuck in space after their spaceship Starliner, which was meant to be bringing them home from the space station, was found to have a fault. They are going to be stuck in the International Space Station until after Christmas, but they might not be alone. The astronauts have reported of hearing a strange, continuous heartbeat-like noise coming through the speaker.
Alright, Butch, that one came through. It was kind of like a pulsing noise, almost like a sonar ping.
NASA thinks that the noise is from a speaker feedback loop between the space station and the Starliner, but they aren't sure. For now, the astronauts are stuck in space. Will they have an unexpected guest for Christmas dinner? We will have to wait and see. That's all for this week's New News with your host, Olivia Jane. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment any news stories you would like us to go over for next week's episode. See you next week. Bye! That's all for this week's New News with your host, Olivia Jane. If you have any news stories you would like us to cover, make sure to email us at newnews@metv.net. See you next week. Bye!